All right. Welcome, everybody, to the show. Episode 910 here of the podcast. I appreciate you all tuning in. As always, we're going to talk some more New York Knicks because that is the only New York sports team that I am following right now, with the other New York team that I follow no longer playing their sport, at least for the remainder of the fall and winter. So, with that said, we're transitioning. We've already transitioned to Knicks basketball. And we're going to talk about this team some more. Now, I did not yet get to see a complete preseason game from this team yet. They played 3. I've just been a bit busy with work and backed up here on the podcast because we were talking Yankees for so much that I just hadn't gotten the chance. But I did see some highlights last night. I went through the condensed game, saw a good 10 minutes of each half. And so I want to discuss what we continue to see and what we see so far with this new Knicks squad in 2025-2026 season here. So they are now 3-0 in preseason play. That's nice. They beat the Minnesota Timberwolves last night in the first game of the season at MSG. After 2 Abu Dhabi games, the Knicks go back to the States and they go back to New York City and they play at Madison Square Garden last night. A very back and forth game, at least early on it was. The Knicks fell behind. They pushed it to OT. It was an ugly grind, but the Knicks eventually win in overtime, 100-95. Didn't think they had overtime games in preseason. Turns out they do. Kolek and Matthews lead the Knicks in overtime with some good play. Karl Anthony Towns, a double-double in less than 30 minutes. Deuce McBride and Jordan Clarkson reach double figures. Jordan Clarkson is an interesting player. And if there's a guard I hope makes the roster, it's Brogdon and not Clarkson. But hey, we'll see. No Josh Hart last night. And then we'll talk about some other stuff, like Mike Brown doesn't run an offense. No, that's a whole thing that I want to clear up because he made those comments last night. We'll talk about that. We'll talk some more defensive stuff. The Knicks experimenting with different lineups. We'll talk all that and more in this episode of BD4, episode 910 here, the podcast. When we return, we'll get right into it.
Quick break here, guys. Stay connected with BD4 on social media. Follow us on Instagram and X at BD4Pod and find us on Facebook by searching BD4. Don't miss out. Join the conversation.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Episode 910 of BD4. Appreciate you tuning into the show. Now, this was fun, man. I know it's again, I hate that I have to say this because somebody's always going to remind me. I understand it's preseason. These are exhibitions. They don't mean anything. Last night, Mike Brown experimenting with multiple different lineups. Already more lineup combinations that, like, he's showing the flexibility that he has as opposed to Tom Thibodeau. I mean, you saw 4 different 5-out looks before the fourth quarter. You know, you had a Shamet lineup in there. You had a Deuce McBride lineup in there with the 5-out look. You had Yabu in there. You had a lot of different 5-out looks last night. And I just think back to last season. If the Knicks are in a game against the Timberwolves last season, Rudy Gobert is helping off of Josh Hart in ghost coverage. What'd you see last night? Last night you saw it was OG Anunoby matched up with Gobert, and he was attacking them in space. You know, that really impressive play where he stampeded the catch and just went right at him. Finished at the hoop. That's your difference right there in this lineup. Now, obviously, the Knicks will be starting a non-spacer this season. Their starting 5 will have Mitchell Robinson in it. And that sucks a bit. right? It's not my preferred starting five because Towns at the five has much more upside, right? I feel the Brunson Towns fit is much more potent when it's in space with no help defender. You know, Towns won't have two defenders on him, a wing and a big, when he's playing in a spaced out lineup. He's also way more effective when he's attacking fives off the dribble versus when he's attacking fours and bigger wings off the dribble. He's not the Julius Randle type, right? And think about it. Like, if you're playing five out and Deuce McBride is a big part of that, his handles, I mean, at least from what we saw in Abu Dhabi, especially, his handles look improved. And if Deuce McBride's handles are improved and he's playing more like a traditional point guard and he's able to break down his defender one-on-one and get to the hoop just at average quality, that's an unstoppable five-out look. However, I'm not going to sit here and act like there aren't potential wrinkles you could throw in there with Mitch at the five, Cat at the four to start games. Like, there are some good things, right? And we discussed this a little bit in previous Knicks episodes. But, like, unlike Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson does have gravity. It's not shooting gravity, but he's able to draw the defense underneath the basket, because when he's on a dunker spot, he's a threat to grab an offensive rebound. He's a threat to throw down a lob. That opens up the lane because that defense is now focusing on Mitch, that defender. You can't put that defender in help. There will be moments, but you can also use Mitch away from the basket in the Isaiah Hartenstein role from a couple of years ago, where I'm interested to see if Mike Brown's going to be using Mitch playmaking at the top, because that's kind of what a Princeton offense is. DHO, blind pig, and other actions where Mitchell Robinson is generating gravity away from the hoop. That's going to open up the lane for Towns to attack those wings, in space, which is the key here. If he's got the bigger wings on him, attack him in space. You know, you can also run that 4-5 pick and roll. Towns is not great as a drive and kick big, but Mitch has gravity as a rim roller to where he can command attention when he's rolling, and that opens up the lane. And I also think, like, we do need to remember, just because Mitch is starting at the five, just because he's starting doesn't mean he's going to play the whole game there. Obviously, you have 20-something other minutes where you don't have him on the floor. He's probably not going to be in the closing lineup either because of his free throw shooting. So you can also make this matchup dependent, right? If you're playing a team with size and you want to match that, you're playing, say, the Cleveland Cavaliers on opening night. I think having Towns at the 4 with Mitch at the 5 is smart. But if you're playing a team that plays quick and has a lot of pace, like the Pacers, I think going with the lineup that has Towns at the 5 and Deuce at the 2 is the smarter route. You know, it can be matchup dependent, especially with Mitch not going to be partaking in back-to-backs this year. So I think playing five-out offense a lot more this season is going to be exciting. It's a completely new wrinkle that we didn't see last year. Remember, only 41 total minutes, and when you include the postseason, only 49 minutes total you saw Deuce McBride with that first unit last year. That's embarrassing. So I do think it's going to be better that we're going to be able to see 5 shooters all spread outside the arc this season. But there are questions to it, right? When you run into tough athletic defenses who play modern schemes, like you saw last night a little bit with Minnesota and how OKC won their championship last year. Defenses that wall off the paint and invite offenses to shoot three-pointers. You know, if you're not on that night and you have a defense like that is flying around with aggressive closeouts to the perimeter and is making late rotations to the basket and help, similar to how the Knicks were able to neutralize that Boston offense by forcing them to heave up 3-point looks. That's kind of the only concern I have, is how do they beat that? Because to beat that type of defense, you're going to need elite driving kick facilitators who can beat the rotation and find the open man off the help, which the Knicks lack that type of personnel. They don't really have that on this roster. But we'll get there when we get there, because most of the NBA isn't going to play that. They're not going to guard like that. And they're not able to. But it's an offense I'm excited for. Obviously, last night, Mike Brown, if you watched the game, you watched the post game, Mike Brown made some comments that have been going around. And I'm going to read what Christian Winfield on Twitter said. He says on Twitter, Mike Brown says the Knicks played this entire game without a single play call, just reading the opponent and reacting accordingly. Says he wants the team to learn to play off of instinct before they begin running sets. So I think the key term there is read and react, right? I think people are misunderstanding what he's saying. The system, there is a system. Let's start there. This is not Tom Thibodeau, where there's not much of a system, although I do think that was a bit overblown. There is a system based off of real principles here that Mike Brown is implementing. The system is built in, okay? It's up to the players right now to learn the system and then run it on the fly. That's what a read and react defense is. You read the defense and you react with half-court sets based off the coverage. It's not like high school where the head coach, is going to hold your hand and he signals horns, every time he wants to run a horns play. It's not like that, because doing that in the NBA is going to help the defense. They're going to pre-switch that at the top of the set, and that completely defeats the purpose of running a play. What Mike Brown is doing here is he's got, I guess, what you would call automatics in there. And automatics keep the offense flowing, and players react to it instead of standing around and watching Brunson dribble the air out of the basketball. That's what we saw a lot last year. The Knicks this year are layering their actions underneath Mike Brown. That's the plan here. So, for example, if the primary action breaks down, you can flow it right into DHO, right into a pick and roll, right into a pick and pop, something on the second side, etc., etc. So it's not just some free-for-all offense like people thought. I was shocked to see the reaction go that way, but it's about quickly going into your sets based off what the defense gives, right? And that's what this whole thing is about. It's about pace, right? Princeton offense is very intricate, but it's got a high upside if you nail it down pat. It's based off pace and space. Motion offense with bigs surveying, wings and guards making back cuts, generating 3-point looks in volume. The Knicks last night, I don't care what they shot. They shot 26%, I think, on threes. I don't care. What I like about what they did last night is they took 57 3-point looks. That's what you want to see. That's what it's about. Pace. The faster you play, the more difficult it's going to be for the defense to get set. The more possessions you get, the better chance you have of scoring. I like to look at it. I wrote a blog the other day, kind of made an analogy to the Knicks layering their actions. It's like having 4 raffle tickets, whereas under Tom Thibodeau, a lot of the time, it was just having 1 raffle ticket because they ran late offense. What would you rather have? Would you rather have 4 raffle tickets or 1 raffle ticket? What gives you the better odds at winning the thing? So it's going to be it's going to be, I hope it doesn't take too much time to learn this, but it's potent. It's potent, and if they can get this down pat, And I think you're already seeing a lot of good things already. I know last night wasn't a pretty offensive game, but it's going to look smooth in good time. Playing fast, man. That's obviously half court, but full court ball, right? Full court offense should be an interesting watch here. The Knicks are expected to play with their heads up off the defensive rebound to create more opportunities. Right? You grab that defensive board. That's how, and you play fast. You push the ball up after a defensive board. That's going to either get you an easy transition look, or it's going to get you into early half court offense with a lot of shot clock left, which again, you did not get that last year. How many times, 16 seconds or less, did the Knicks have to run a play and Brunson was out there switch hunting? But you're seeing more leak outs. Brunson, Mikal already this preseason. So I think the full court opportunities are going to be there. How is that going to fare against elite defenses? Again, we'll see. But yeah, getting into the half court and being able to play this system. Listen, Jalen Brunson's going to dominate the ball. But I do think this year, under this head coach, and you've already seen it a decent amount this preseason, the idea is to create easier looks for the captain, right? Leverage Jalen Brunson's gravity. Brunson spent a ton of time on the ball under Tibbs. And again, that's not going to significantly change, but I would expect Mike Brown to run him off pin downs, elevator plays, staggers, floppy, etc. It's going to free him up off the ball and catch and shoot, where he is very elite. And I thought last season, pretty unacceptable in my opinion, Jalen Brunson's catch and shoot game was at such low volume. For a guy who was, here are the numbers here. Last year on the three-point line, Jalen Brunson 42% in catch and shoot on 121 attempts. 37% in pull-up threes on 264 attempts. That's a wild disparity there. And you go back to the postseason, he was 18% better on catch and shoot threes, but he took 82 more pull-up threes. It's a wild disparity. So running him in more off-ball actions, I think, is only going to help his efficiency. What else do I want to get to here? Lastly, before we wrap up, we'll talk some defense. Real quick, though, I want to get to a break. Stay with us. Be back in a sec.
Want more BD4? Subscribe to our YouTube channel and never miss an episode. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and share with your fellow fans. Don't forget to ring that bell so you're always the first to know when a new video drops. Love BD4 but don't have the time to sit down and watch? Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leave us a 5-star rating and a quick review. It helps us grow and keeps the conversation going.
Okay. Welcome back to the show, episode 910. The Knicks are 3-0 in preseason play. Beat the Wolves last night. Real briefly, I thought the defense last night was better. And again, you continue to see the same theme here where the Knicks schematically are very aggressive in gap help, right? And again, that's a big reason why they beat the Celtics last year. And I think you're going to see a lot of that this year. A lot of gap help with your guards and your wings, and you're going to see some varied coverages with your bigs. Switching on more, shallow drop at the level, deep drop near the basket. But as far as the guards and the wings, the perimeter players, when they're in gap help, I trust OG Anunoby, of course. I trust Mikal Bridges in that role. I trust Deuce McBride. I think those guys are elite help defenders. When you go to your point guard, Jalen Brunson, and it's another thing we discussed an episode ago. It gets a little scary when you're talking about putting Brunson in help because he's smaller, he's less athletic, so he can't be as effective when he digs or when he shows, or else he'll get hurt when he tries to recover. The Knicks can alleviate that a little bit. They can make, I think that's what alleviate means, make it easier for him by putting having Mitch on the back line and help as that last security blanket. And again, rotating your wings one pass away is going to help Brunson if he's on a mismatch and one-on-one. If he struggles and Brunson's in help and then they kick it to Brunson's man, the guy next to Brunson from the corner maybe, brings help. There are ways to make it easier. But again, it's going to be tough to execute that, which is why I think, and I saw this idea on Twitter the other day, it can be pretty smart. I think it'd be pretty smart if the Knicks put Brunson at the point of attack. Obviously, this would be in your non-5 out, non-Deuce McBride lineups where you'd have Deuce at your point of attack, at the point of attack. But again, if you have Brunson in screen navigation and he's up there at the point, then all your wings are playing to their strengths and gap help, right? We know Mikal was not great in screen navigation last year. He was struggling at the point of attack very much. His best defensive skill is his ability to just use his body in help coverage. OG Anunoby, he's good in screen navigation at the point of attack, but he's also his best in help coverage. So I think putting Brunson at the point of attack allows your wings to all optimize themselves, and even Towns, like when Towns is playing the 4 this year, metrically, he was elite in help coverage in that role, playing the 4 off of a wing. He's a good help defender. And then if he's at the 5, we saw that his best coverage at the 5 is when he's switching on. He's solid when he's switching on, but he is very atrocious in drop coverage. There's going to be a time for that, but I think switching a 5 like Towns is probably the best when he's at the 5. It's also very taxing to do it all the time, which is a big reason why Tibbs didn't switch his 5s a lot. They're big guys. The concerning part with Towns to me defensively, as we wrap up here, is he's probably going to play a fair amount of both the 4 and the 5. And I feel defensively, Karl Anthony Towns is he's best defensively when his role is simplified. When he knows what he's doing and he knows it's going to be the same exact role every night on defense. So my worry is, what's that balance going to be like? How often is he going to be at the 4? How often at the 5? How often will he be in help coverage at the 4? How often is he going to be in a drop at the 5, a switch, a hedge? So, I said a few years ago before the Knicks traded for Towns, when it was just like a bunch of rumors with the Knicks trade for Towns, I don't know if they can win a championship with him because of this. It's just such a tough fit. But I definitely do think he's in a much more suited role under this head coach. You think back to the Tibbs stuff. The Tibbs stuff was wild last year with Towns, playing him at his worst position on both sides of the floor. He was playing Josh Hart at the 5 and Towns at the 4 on offense. And then on the other end, he had Towns at the 5, with no rim protection. It was just wild. It's like playing those two guys together was just crazy. So we'll see. But I'm very excited. And I know a lot of what we talked about in this show was what we've really already discussed. But again, it's preseason. There's not much you can take away. But I'm excited for the year. And that's going to be it for this episode, folks. I appreciate you all tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Go Knicks. Hey guys, thank you for listening to BD4. Be sure to follow us on social media, subscribe to us on YouTube, and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time.